What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on a Sunday, the 17th of August, 2025. We got a great show in store for you guys tonight. Going to kick off the week, talk about a little bit of preseason NFL football. I know it's boring. I know nobody really gives a shit about it, me included, but we got to talk about it because it's what's going on right now. And it's going to be the precursor for when these teams inevitably, and I hate to say it, I don't wish it upon any team, any individual, any franchise, etc., but you're going to get teams that incur some injuries. That's just the game of football. That's what you have to deal with, and that's what you have to expect going into any season. So we're going to look at the preseason. We're going to see what it has to offer. Look at a couple games that took place this past weekend, this weekend that we're in, and look at it a little bit in some more depth. So we're excited to do that tonight. Thanks again for joining us. We're highlighting the Bears, okay, the Chicago Bears, the Bears, right? It's easy to do because they're NFC North, and we focus on the NFC North just because the Lions are in the NFC North. And geographically, let's just talk about geography for a second, where we're at geographically in the world. It warrants us to talk about the NFC North. It warrants us to talk about the Bears, warrants us to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers, the dreaded Packers. So we're going to talk about the Packers. We're going to highlight the Bears and the Lions today. Obviously, we touch on the Lions every single week. And Rocco, our lead analyst here on the DCP, is going to do that for us here in the coming week. We're excited to have him on. But looking at the Bears, Ben Johnson getting the nod as the head coach at Chicago. This is his time to shine as a head coach. This is what he was built for. This is his next level. And his tenure at Detroit really led him, I believe, to get the job in Chicago as the head coach. So Caleb Williams is playing in the preseason. He didn't prove himself enough in the regular season last year. And Coach Ben Johnson wants him to prove himself further in the regular season, yes, but also in the preseason. So he went 6 for 10 for 107 yards and a touchdown, and that's kind of ongoing. So we're expecting him to continue and do great things. That was before what happened just recently. They're up 21-0 against my Buffalo Bills, which they're not looking too good in the preseason either. So there's some question marks there. There's some questions I have for the Sean McDermotts of the world as to where they're at. Just as I'm sure a lot of Lions fans have questions for Dan Campbell and what's going on with the Detroit Lions. They've showed some promise. They've fixed some errors that they've made since the Chargers game, the Hall of Fame game. But that's neither here nor there. There's still a lot of errors that have to be fixed and wrinkles that have to get ironed out. So Caleb Williams is looking good. He's going to need a big comeback season. And he had a lot of promise. It's tough to be that guy that's the number one guy, and everyone's looking at you on your high horse. You're on your high horse. You're expecting to play maybe a little similar to the style of football you were playing in college, but now you're just playing at the next level. So you're expecting, yes, it's going to be a different mentality. Yes, it's going to be a different sport entirely, different competition, different aura, different environment, different hostile environments, etc. But I think he had that year to really get adjusted, to get the reality check. Okay, this is where I'm at. I'm here now, and I have to figure this out on my own. And having Ben Johnson come in and with his prowess and what he's been able to prove as a coordinator, and now transferring that, he's kind of doing the same thing that Caleb Williams was doing last year. He's getting comfortable in his own skin. He's trying to figure out, okay, now I'm on the sidelines. I'm not in the skybox anymore. I'm on the sidelines. I'm on the front lines with my guys. We're with the infantrymen. We're gonna figure this out on the front lines. If we don't, we're gonna crumble. We're gonna die. Essentially, this is a battlefield. We've seen men come close to death on the gridiron. It's happened. Sadly, but that's what it is. That's what football is. That's why we love football, really. Not because it's dangerous, not because it's scary, and not because these athletes are flirting with death on a weekly basis, but because it's a man's sport. And It's, protect yourself or be demolished. That's the mentality that has to be taken into it. And that's the mentality that really you're going to have to get to at a certain point anyway, because whether or not you like it or not, you're going to have to face facts and you're going to have to get in the driver's seat. And, when the pressure gets built up, it's either going to break pipes or make diamonds. So keep that in mind. And that's what's going through these guys' heads. Looking at these things more analytically, it'll help you when you're making your fantasy picks. It'll help you when you're placing bets on games. But even then, you can try to put yourself in the same mindset that these coordinators, now head coaches, are in, that these rookies now, second year rookies, which essentially they are in. But you'll really never know what kind of mindset, what kind of frame of mind they're in going into the game. So that's what makes that even more interesting. You'd like to have a good idea of, okay, I've seen this guy play enough games, whether it be at college, whether it be in the NFL for even a season minimum. And I'm going to have a good idea of where this guy's at mentally to be able to succeed. So Caleb Williams, it's kind of a do or die season. You see him putting in reps in the preseason. He's probably going to be the main guy. But you got to see more out of him. And I give Ben Johnson a lot of credit for playing him in the preseason, risking injury in the preseason, bullshit games, right? But you got to see how he plays in an in-game situation because, let's be honest, the Bears didn't get it done last year. So they are on a track to be a threat in the NFC North, I would say. Maybe a bold take. I'd like to get Robert's analysis on that, maybe a little bit more. Maybe even tap in with some of the guys in the pro capper, see where their heads are at. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, but it's all up in the air. And it begs the question. It really does beg the question. How many conclusions can be drawn from the NFL preseason, right? You see what's happened with the Detroit Lions. You see what happened, with the Bills getting skunked right now. That tells me that their depth is terrible. That tells me that their defense is terrible. First of all, yes, they're playing probably a lot of first stringers on the Bears side, so you can't really fault them 100% for that. You look at effort. How much effort are we putting forth in a game? Because we don't want to risk injury. We've seen season-ending injuries, even in the NFC North with J.J. McCarthy last year, and now he's back. He's making a splash. But these things have to get considered, and it really begs the question: how much can we take into consideration pre-draft in any fantasy league, in any preseason betting scenarios, about what we can expect to see in the regular season? Because there's obviously football going on, but how much of this style of football are we going to see in the regular season? It's not really apples to apples. It's apples to oranges and maybe pears. So you're throwing a couple of fruits in the bowl, and it's a fruit salad. It's really what it is. So I'm looking to see. I'm looking to draw some conclusions. I'm trying to draw some conclusions going into Week 1 for the NFL. I guess if there's any silver lining at all with the preseason, we can kind of get a feel for where the team is at as a whole, chemistry-wise, backups. When the going gets tough and guys get injured, your number will be called. How are you going to perform? Yes, you'll be alongside a lot of first-string guys. Guys are going to bring you up and keep your spirits high. But you'd like to think that the style of football is at the highest level, even with these depth guys, because they're fighting for a spot. These guys don't have a guaranteed spot on the team. So that has to be brought into consideration also. Another one that we're looking at, Tyler Shaw, actually, rookie. And he's got the nod to go as the head guy for quarterback, played the first half for the Saints, went 9 for 12 for 66 yards. Not the best performance. But then Spencer Rattler played the entire second half, completed 18 for 24 for 199 yards, a touchdown, an interception. And they wound up, I believe, tying that game. But Spencer Rattler has made a splash in college. He didn't get the starting position at quarterback today or this weekend. And he wound up succeeding. He rose to the occasion. He said, okay, that's what we're going to do with what we got. We might be playing with some depth O-linemen, but we're going to get the job done with who we got. And these guys are playing in the National Football League. Okay, these guys are, maybe if they're not first string guys, they're getting thrown in the game in an in-game situation where they're expected to play at the highest level, and they're there for a reason. They're not there by fluke. So that's what we got to be considering when we're looking at these preseason games. We're not going to dissect all these preseason games just because it's a preseason. So let's rattle down some scores right now. Let's rattle down some of the scores that we've seen this past weekend. Titans win against the Falcons 23-20. Seahawks 33 against the Chiefs to 16 points. Texans 20-3. They win against the Panthers. Browns beat the Eagles 22-13. Damn, I mean, that's crazy right there. Patriots 20, Vikings 12. They take the lead against the NFC Northern men, the Minnesota Vikings. Packers 23, Colts 19. Another great matchup to look at going down the stretch. And the Dolphins win a tough one against the Detroit Lions. I was actually watching that game at the tail end, and that was a great pick by the DN in that situation. He's probably going to get a spot just for that play. Okay, I was talking to my boy Issa about that. And he said, you know what? He's probably going to get a spot from that play. I couldn't agree more. He absolutely should from that pick against Hendon Hooker. And that's something that we got to highlight. And that's something we're going to talk about with Robert Rocco is the Detroit Lions, where they're at with their quarterbacks in their depth positions. And it even got brought up in the conversation of, and I said it. I said, damn, I just wish Jared Goff was a little bit more athletic. That's all I wish. I'm not asking a hell of a lot, but I'm asking for a little bit more. To have some pride. Have some pride in the state of Michigan. Maybe I'm not even a Detroit Lions fan. Okay, but what is the motto for the Detroit Lions? It's one pride. Okay, it's one pride. Say it loud, say it proud. Okay, we're wearing the Honolulu blue on any given Sunday, sometimes Thursday, maybe even a Monday. And you got to say it loud. You got to say it proud. You got to wear the colors on your shirt, but at the same time, you got to display greatness on the field. So that's not always going to happen every week, but you got to see 110%. And let's just be honest. There's been some changes at the offensive line, the entire front line for the Detroit Lions. There's been some changes, and those changes might prove to be detrimental for the Lions going into this season. I've seen them already with the depth positions. Now, linemen are no exemption when it comes to getting injured, getting hurt. Okay, we've seen it happen already. And to see the lack of depth the Detroit Lions have after already making some changes with their first string guys in the depth chart for their O-line, that's concerning for Jared Goff. That's concerning for Detroit Lions fans. It's got to be concerning for the new coordinators and Dan Campbell alike, because you're looking at an offensive line that might be banged up. Going into the latter half of the season last year, you're seeing the entire team was banged up. You've seen how they performed under pressure. They did a hell of a job. They squeezed out a lot of big 50-50 games. But now you're coming into a brand new season. Changes are made up front right out of the gate. And there's some questions because, and this is the only reason why. You're seeing the problems with an athletic quarterback, okay, in Hendon Hooker. You're seeing Kyle Allen really see some success at the quarterback position. I like what I'm seeing with Kyle Allen. Actually, I liked what I've seen against the Dolphins a lot more from Kyle Allen than I've seen in previous games. And I'd put him a little bit ahead of Hendon Hooker. When you look back at the college days at Tennessee playing for the Vols, Hendon Hooker would have been my guy. Hendon Hooker would have been the athletic guy. And I'm not saying he's not athletic, okay? But I'm saying he blends into the background a little bit more when it comes to, I don't want to say mediocre quarterbacks, but when it comes to the baseline of quarterbacks that they're still young, they're still rookies. But when you talk about rookie quarterbacks that should be making more of a splash, that should be getting more high caliber touches and high caliber plays being made in game situations, everyone's really fighting for a spot. You want to see better out of these players. So I seen better out of Kyle Allen than I did than Hendon Hooker. And yeah, he had the pick at the end of the game, which really screwed the pooch for the Lions. But be it as it may, Kyle Allen had a hell of a game compared to Hendon Hooker. And that would have been you'd probably force a tie because you're not doing OT in the preseason, which I think is a good rule. But you got to see better from Hendon Hooker in that game, personally. So that's kind of just what we're looking at. Obviously, we're also thinking about what everyone's talking about is Aaron Rodgers as well, playing for the Steelers, probably getting the nod. Mike Tomlin has got to be thinking in his head, "Hey, we gotta go above 500 because that's always what's in the front line view is let's get above 500. He's never not done it, so we gotta get it done. If that's with Aaron Rodgers, if this is going away season, if this is his farewell season, then we got to see everything and more from him. So the question still remains: does he have gas in the tank? That's going to be the age-old question that we won't see probably till week one. But listen, that's a question we're going to be asking here in a couple weeks. So I'm excited. I'm excited. Tell you what, another guy that I'm looking at pretty closely is Jackson Dart, Giants rookie. He had another great preseason performance. Playing against the Jets, completed 14 of 16 passes for 137 yards and a touchdown to go alongside a touchdown run. That really begs the question: Russell Wilson, is he kind of trembling in his boots a little bit? Is this guy coming for my spot? Right, because the Giants, Coach Dable is hungry for a great season. They've been on the brink of kind of having a breakout. It hasn't really played out that way, and it didn't really bear any fruit last season. But could Russell Wilson be, he's on his ass, basically. Jackson Dart is on Russell Wilson's ass for that spot, for that that head quarterback spot, the first string spot. And he's getting the reps in the preseason. He's putting up some good numbers. He's delivering, and obviously he has some weapons alongside him to help him out with that. But Jackson Dart, keep your eyes on him. He's going to be on a lot of radars for fantasy picks, and fantasy managers are going to be looking at him, probably drafting him relatively high up for probably a backup quarterback, maybe not first string, but he's going to be in the running for a backup spot, I'd say, on several rosters. You might even be able to pick him up on waivers week after week, depending on, and let's be honest, it's probably going to be Russell Wilson to start the season. Dable's going to want to see how Russell Wilson can play coming out of the gate. Can he succeed? Can he do well? This is all I'm saying, is it's going to be a quick sub out for Dable to sub out Russell Wilson and put Jackson Dart in there. So that's something you got to be thinking about. And I'll be surprised if he doesn't get at least a few touches, maybe going into week 2, week 3. And that's in the regular season. So be on the lookout for that. He's going to be a threat on the Giants offense. And especially if he's putting numbers like this up. And I get it. It's preseason. You're not playing against first string players. But these things have to be considered. And there's so many others. Because we're looking at 2025 fantasy picks. Okay, you can look at expected points and get caught in the weeds with all that. But this is all I would advise you to do. And this is for my pro capper guys as well. Actually, mostly directed at my pro capper guys, but this is for fantasy managers everywhere. We're coming up on the day that we're going to be picking the draft order. Okay, that's going to be the 23rd for us, the pro capper. We're going to be delivering some relatively weekly news on that. Robert got the nod as the commissioner for the pro capper this year. He's going to be in charge of everything going alongside and coinciding with the rules that we have in place for trades and manager chemistry and things like that, interaction between managers and teams, and basically overarching complexity of the league. He's going to be in charge of all that, keeping the peace. He's going to be the peacemaker, peace officer. But he's the commissioner, so he holds the ultimate ruling on things. Where previously that was me. So that decision was made by myself to give Robert the nod because obviously he's my NFL guy. He's my NFL analyst, head lead analyst here on the DCP. So who better to be in that position than Robert? Exactly. Nobody. So not only that is he good at diplomacy, and does he know the NFL? He does. He knows the NFL inside and out like the back of his hand. But he is good at seeing the glass half full. He's good at looking at things objectively, hearing the voices of the people, and he has that skill set to keep control within a group of individuals that might be hostile. It might be hostile situations that go on within the league and within league managers, et cetera. So I think it's a good pick. I think it's a good move, and I'm excited to see what Robert can do as the commissioner for the Pro Capper League. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. It's already exciting to see what's taken place, but there has been some ruffling of the feathers, I'll say, within the Pro Capper. But it's all in good taste. In my opinion, it's all in good taste. It's all in good fun. And that's really what fantasy is all about, is having fun. Yes, there might be some cheese on the line, but we're all in it to have some fun, watch some football, maybe throw some skin out there on some bets, throw some props out there, and it's going to be a hell of a season. I'm looking forward to it. I've really never really looked forward to an NFL season like I have this season. So we just got to get through the preseason. Take it all with a grain of salt, enjoy the games as they come and as we watch them, but take it with a grain of salt because we're really all counting down the time and counting down the days and weeks to week one, which that's what we're all looking forward to. So I'm excited for the Pro Capper this year, and it's going to be a hell of a season. I don't really know of any other fantasy league that really broadcasts this kind of stuff. We're going to be more or less transparent with the people as far as what's going on, whether you're in the pro, definitely people within the Pro Capper, but also people within the rest of the GSN community. They're going to be in the loop. And I'm excited for this season. It's going to be fun. So be sure to follow us and check us out with what's going on inside and out with the Pro Capper League and fantasy entirely. As you guys might know, this used to be the fantasy podcast. Seth, Smitty used to run that show, and that was a great era of the Pro Capper, of the GSN Pro Capper League. Fun times, but that has since developed into the Double Coverage podcast, which is overarchingly displaying NFL and what's going on inside and out with the league itself, but also all the rules changes and things that are going on inside the NFL. So alongside fantasy, so it's became more of a broader spectrum than solely fantasy. And the other issue was, how much do we want to display? How much do we want to give the people that may be watching, especially pre-draft? Because you look at fantasy, it is a cutthroat type of deal. It's competitive. It is tempers flare. Like I said, it's all in good fun, but people get lost in the sauce, right? That's what happens. That's just what happens with competition. It's fair to expect these things to happen, but you don't want to be giving away the secrets, right? You don't want to be giving away the secrets to others, maybe in your league, maybe in the Pro Capper League, maybe in the Joe Schmo League that you're playing in at work, because who's picking up on what? You don't want to let the cat out of the bag, and I'm playing in the league as well. So anything I'm giving out is going to be general information, free for the taking. But you have to say everything with some courtesy, and cautiousness. Courtesy and caution have to be paramount when you're explaining anything fantasy-wise. Now, by no means am I a fantasy guru, fantasy expert. I do it for the fun of the competition. I do it for the fun of the game, to compete every single week with these guys. It's fun. It's fun to see other guys, other teams, other managers compete and communicate. It's fun to see the trades take place. It's good to have a process in place with trades that can semi-moderate itself. So you're not in there monitoring every trade. You're not in there voting on every single trade, because you just have to make sure that no one's in there to sabotage the league. That's something that should be in place for every single fantasy league. And if I'm going to give any pointers out, this is for the commissioners of every fantasy league out there in the world. Have something in place where nobody can sabotage the league, because if they do, not only will they risk losing their team, but they risk their reputation as a fantasy manager across every league, right? So you got to keep that in mind. And it's very much like, that's why they call it fantasy manager, because you're in charge of your team. You're in charge of your domain. And you have to treat that as such. You have to treat it with respect. You have to treat the league with respect. You have to treat fellow managers with respect. You have to treat the commissioners of the league with respect. But more importantly than anything, you got to treat the game of fantasy with respect. So that's what we try to breed, especially within the pro capper. There's no vetting that takes place, but that's why you have to have a good rules dynamic built into the league that is agreed upon, respected, and abided by every manager. Otherwise, you get lost in the weeds. And otherwise, you got to deal with bullshit later on. And I've heard it happening in other leagues that are going around within mutual friends, connections in my circles. So keep that in mind. I advise you, if you don't have a rules sheet in place, a set of rules that can be abided by and essentially virtually signed upon by every manager in the league, get one in place, even if it's bare bones. Maybe even get ChatGPT involved. Okay, have AI assist you with having a set of rules that can be agreed upon, that are non-controversial and also non-restrictive. They have to be non-restrictive, but they have to be restrictive enough where nobody's going to risk sabotaging the league, because that will ruin it for everybody. So things to keep in mind. I highly advocate for that, and I suggest you do that if you don't already. Get one in place before the draft. You have some time. So we'll leave it at that, guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Make sure to check us out on social media. Find us on our website, ginsportsnetwork.com. Find us on IG at ginsportsnetwork. Find me on Twitter /X and Instagram at gincommish, and we'll talk more on there. We'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm your host, John J. II. Have a great night.